As Hong Kong recovers from the COVID-19 pandemic, its economy is expected to shrink by 8% this year. Meanwhile, unemployment is nearing a 15-year high. And as neighboring Shenzhen celebrates 40 years of reform and opening up, some observers worry that Hong Kong's role in the Greater Bay Area development may be diminished. But Hong Kong SAR Chief Executive Carrie Lam believes the two cities can act as dual engines to drive the development of the region and create a dual city economy. So what challenges and opportunities face Hong Kong now, and how will the city revive its economy post-COVID? Joining me for the discussion is Mr. Stephen Phillips, Director General of Investment Promotion at Invest Hong Kong, a department of the Hong Kong SAR government responsible for attracting and retaining foreign direct investment. Stephen, welcome to our program. You've heard the numbers, employment nearing a 15-year high, 8% growth, actually negative growth this year. Are things looking as bad as the numbers suggest?
Well, obviously Hong Kong's economy, like many around the world, has been severely hit by the impact of COVID-19. And sadly that means many people have indeed lost their jobs. But I think in terms of what I see day to day, it's rather a more mixed picture, a more nuanced picture when you drill down into different sectors within the economy. Clearly we know that the retail sector, the tourism and hospitality sector and the travel sector have been amongst the hardest hit. That said, a number of other sectors have proven to be more resilient. And that really includes financial and professional services, technology generally, including life sciences. Fintech is another area where we've seen a lot of buoyancy. So it really does depend upon individual companies. I think looking to the future, first of all, companies are obviously looking to stabilise their business situation. But at the same time, they've got an eye on growth opportunities in the short, medium and longer term. Clearly China is leading the way in terms of global economic recovery. And that's of great interest to all of the companies that we're working with around the world. The Greater Bay Area, which you mentioned in your opening remarks, is also a phenomenal magnet for further investment and has got massive growth potential. So whilst it's a challenging environment, I think we see plenty of opportunity, and the companies that we're talking to all around the world equally see that opportunity.
Right. How has the Hong Kong SAR government and your department in particular factored in the possibility of the second wave? And what measures has the SAR government taken to combat these challenges?
Well, I think in Hong Kong we've had a very focused effort on controlling the outbreaks of COVID in the city. First of all, we've severely curtailed the entry of people from outside Hong Kong to the city with strict border controls, testing on entry, and that's capturing the occasional cases that are coming from outside Hong Kong. At the same time, within Hong Kong itself, the government has been working very hard with the public to implement safety measures and also a very targeted approach at tackling any outbreaks within the community. I think fortunately in the last week or so we've seen quite a good degree of progress and a lot of stabilisation of the situation. I think some optimistic news in terms of perhaps in a limited way opening up the borders. Hong Kong and Singapore in discussion on a travel bubble. And hopefully in the not too distant future, actually the border with the mainland are also opening up. On the economic side, the Hong Kong government has also provided a lot of support to a whole range of businesses, whether on a sectoral basis or in terms of supporting the continued engagement of employees within companies. So the government working very hard both to control the public health situation, but also to support companies during this difficult period.
Yeah, we've heard from SAR Chief Executive Carrie Lam says that she wants to develop what she calls dual city economy with Shenzhen. What's your understanding of this concept?
Well, first of all, the Greater Bay Area, I genuinely think is the most significant economic development initiative anywhere around the world. It's got phenomenal potential. It captures the imagination of every business that I talk to. Obviously, there are 9 cities within the overall GBA landscape, and I think it requires collaboration between each and every one of those cities. Obviously, you've got Shenzhen and you've got Hong Kong, which are both formidable cities in their own right. So further collaboration, deeper collaboration between Hong Kong and Shenzhen will be critically important. But equally, I think collaboration between Hong Kong and Dongguan or Foshan or Zhongshan and the other cities will be equally important. And certainly in terms of the work that Invest Hong Kong does with international investors, we really intend to work very closely with our counterparts in each of the other cities to bring to life the tremendous opportunities that exist and help companies realize those opportunities.
Yeah, Stephen, you talked about Greater Bay Area. This GBA concept has been presented in the West, however, as Beijing's attempt to integrate Hong Kong with the mainland. They point out that they call this steady rollback of political freedoms that threaten the one country, two systems framework. Do you look at it that way?
I certainly don't look at it that way. I think the closer economic integration of Hong Kong into the rest of the country is only natural. The fact that we've got second largest economy, soon to be probably in the next decade the largest economy in the world, naturally means that Hong Kong will have ever closer links with not only GBA but the whole of the country. And from a commercial point of view, that is exciting. Companies are desperately looking for growth around the world. And that closer cooperation is essential to realize the full potential. So I think when we're in the commercial world, people see things very differently indeed to perhaps some of the narrative that is out there that sees it as a diminution of one country, two systems. I think it's the wrong interpretation. When you look at the overall blueprint for the Greater Bay Area, the unique positioning of Hong Kong and Macau, with their different legal systems, their different economic structures, is part of, if you like, the magical recipe of the whole of the Greater Bay Area. So I actually think it's a misinterpretation.
Right. Let's talk about another issue that is not without its controversy, national security law. 3 months since its passing, how do you think it has changed Hong Kong?
Well, first of all, I would say that the impact of COVID-19 is of much greater concern to the business community. But from a commercial point of view, NSL has tackled a fundamental issue of concern to businesses, which is about the disruption caused by the social unrest. So the restoration of stability and order in the city is welcomed by the business community. That said, like any legal or regulatory change anywhere in the world, companies do have some questions. And they are watching carefully how NSL is being implemented and understanding what they need to do to comply with the requirements of NSL. But fundamentally, I think the fact that it's restored law and order is providing the fundamental basis upon which, in this period of economic recovery, post-COVID, post the civil unrest, that companies can build upon. And of course the companies are focused on those opportunities that we've already touched on, whether it's GBA, the country as a whole, or indeed using Hong Kong to tap into the fast-growing economies of ASEAN.
Right. U.S. President Donald Trump has ended Hong Kong's preferential trade status in response to the national security law. What impact has that had on Hong Kong?
Well, clearly the geopolitical situation between China and the US and Hong Kong being in that mix is of concern to businesses. Again, it goes to uncertainty. I would say that on the most part, I think it is impacting sentiment, perhaps more than a direct economic impact. But obviously sentiment has a correlation with economic performance. I think the reality, though, is that post-COVID, the global economy is going to emerge with different patterns. China obviously leading the way in returning to economic growth. A number of other Asian economies also doing that, where COVID has been brought in control, for example, Vietnam. And then overall Asia as increasingly this engine for global economic growth. So I think whilst we see the tensions on the US front, companies will adapt to this much bigger changing environment with greater trade and investment flows intra-Asia, perhaps offering new opportunities that weren't there even a year or so ago. So I think companies will do what they excel at, and that's adapting to whatever the situation is.
All right, Stephen, good luck to all the work that you've done over there in Hong Kong. Thanks so much for joining us today. Come back. Many thanks to Mr. Stephen Phillips, Director General of Investment Promotion at Invest Hong Kong. With that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. Download the CGTN app to watch our show, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thank you for watching. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing.